Have you ever tried to master a really complex skill? Like
Uh,
you spend hours watching tutorials, reading articles, maybe you even buy one of those expensive online courses.
oh, yeah. We've all been there.
Right. And you put in all this effort, but then you feel like you are completely plateauing. You hit this massive brick wall.
Yeah, it's incredibly frustrating. And, it happens because we fundamentally misunderstand how improvement actually works.
Exactly. So that is our mission for this deep dive today. We are exploring that exact gap, the space between, wanting to improve and actually improving.
It's a huge gap for most people.
It really is. And to figure this out, we're looking at a super fascinating stack of sources from a poker training platform. It's called RangeFlow, and they have this AI tool called RangeFlowAI.
Which is a really incredible piece of tech.
Totally. And look, if you've never played a single hand of poker in your life, stick with us. Because their whole philosophy on learning data and human behavior, it's going to completely rewire how you think about mastering literally any high-pressure skill.
Oh, without a doubt. It applies to everything.
Okay, let's unpack this. Why are we looking at poker to understand, human learning and performance?
Well, because poker is, honestly, the ultimate test of ground for human decision-making. I mean, think about it.
Right. It's super high stress.
Exactly. It's
What?
an environment with constantly incomplete information, high financial stakes, and just relentless pressure.
Which is pretty much what a lot of real life feels like.
Yeah, exactly. And in the traditional poker world, the advice for getting better has always just been, just play more hands.
Oh.
Put in the volume.
Which makes sense on the surface, right? Like practice makes perfect.
It does make sense intuitively. But RangeFlow's core premise is that this advice isn't just a little bit wrong, it's actively destructive.
Wow. Okay, so why is it destructive? They call it the trap of passive learning, right?
Yeah, because doing reps without immediate feedback,
Right.
it just reinforces whatever you're already doing, good or bad.
Oh, I see. So if your natural instinct is wrong,
Then playing 1,000 more hands just makes that wrong play feel completely natural. You're just burning bad habits into your brain.
that makes total sense. It's like going to the driving range to practice golf.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
Right. Like if your swing is terrible, hitting 1,000 golf balls doesn't make you good at golf. You're just getting incredibly good at being bad.
Exactly. You're perfecting a terrible swing. And the sources point out that watching training videos is just as bad. It's completely passive.
Wait, really? Even educational videos?
Yeah, they compare it to watching cooking shows.
Huh.
Like, you can watch someone make a souffle for hours, but you can't just step into a Michelin star kitchen and be a master chef.
Yeah, because you aren't the one dealing with the pans literally being on fire.
Right. It's easy to watch a video and say, oh, I totally would have done that. But you didn't actually have to risk anything.
So if volume is bad and watching videos is an illusion, what is the actual answer? How do we build that bridge to improvement?
So their solution is this highly structured 20-minute daily active training approach.
Just 20 minutes.
Just 20 minutes. It breaks down into 3 very specific chunks.
Hmm.
First, you do 5 minutes reviewing flagged hands from your last session.
Okay, so 5 minutes of review.
Right. Then the core of it is 10 minutes of scenario-based drills. For example, the AI might put you in a spot where you're facing a check raise.
Let's actually pause there and translate that for the non-poker players. What is a check raise and why is it so stressful?
Ah, okay. A check raise is basically a psychological trap. Your opponent acts like they have a weak hand by checking, which lures you into making a bet.
Okay, so you feel confident.
Exactly. But the second you bet, they suddenly turn around and aggressively raise the stakes. They force you to pay a massive premium to stay in.
Oh, wow. So it completely flips the script on you.
It induces total panic.
Yeah.
And in the AI drill, you have to actually commit to a play right then and there. You can't pause.
You just have to click a button and react.
Yes. And the literal millisecond you commit, you get immediate feedback on whether you were mathematically right or wrong.
So there's no hiding. You instantly see the gap between your gut feeling and the right answer.
Exactly. And then finally, you spend the last 5 minutes reading just one bite-sized concept. 5, 10, 5. That's the whole 20 minutes.
Wow. What's fascinating here is how that actually scales up. Because 20 minutes sounds like nothing, but if you do that every day, that's what, like 120 hours a year?
Yeah, over 120 hours of focused, active training. Most players don't get that in 5 years of just playing casually.
That's incredible. But I feel like there's a catch here. Training for 20 minutes is great, but it's useless if you're practicing the wrong strategy, right?
Oh, absolutely. And this brings us to the most entertaining realization in the sources. It's the checkers versus chess problem.
Yes. This part blew my mind. Let's get into this because it explains why playing perfectly can actually make you lose.
Yeah, so there's this concept called GTO game theory optimal strategy. It's the gold standard for serious players.
Right, it's basically the pursuit of unexploitable math.
Mm.
People memorize these huge spreadsheets to make the mathematically perfect play every time.
Exactly. But the irony is these regulars, the guys studying the spreadsheets, they sit down and lose heavily to amateurs who don't even know the rules very well.
Yeah, there's that great quote from the text, something like, "You're bringing a chess strategy to a game of checkers and then getting mad when they jump your pieces."
It's so true. The chess manual didn't prepare you for someone just making random illogical moves.
But wait, let me play devil's advocate for a second. Isn't math just math?
What do you mean?
Like, if I'm making the theoretically perfect play, shouldn't I just naturally win out over time, regardless of what the amateur's doing?
It's a really logical question.
Oh,
But GTO assumes your opponent is also playing a near-perfect rational game. It assumes you're playing a supercomputer.
right. But you're not playing a supercomputer.
No, you're playing an unpredictable, highly emotional human being.
Hmm.
Against an unsolved opponent, the theoretically correct play is actually the wrong play.
Because it leaves money on the table.
Exactly. It fails to maximize the profit you could get from their specific glaring mistakes. The sources call this the poker in poker, the metagame.
So you have to play the player, not the cards.
Right. Like if you're playing against a nit, a player who is terrified of losing and folds almost everything.
Right. Against a nit, the math might say to play cautiously. But the metagame says, well, they're scared, so just steal their chips constantly.
Exactly. You exploit their fear. And if you're playing a calling station, someone who just never folds because they're too curious,
Then you completely stop bluffing them.
you never bluff them. You just wait for a good hand and charge them the maximum amount of money.
Okay, that makes sense. But if theoretical math isn't the answer, how do you actually know what the person is going to do? I mean, we can't read minds.
No, we can't. But we can read data. And this is where RangeFlowAI is just mind-blowing. They analyzed over 4 million real cash game hands.
4 million! That's insane.
Real human beings playing with real money under real stress. And they found that the average thinking player makes exactly 47 specific exploitable mistakes every single session.
Wait, really? 47 mistakes?
Every single time. And each mistake costs them an average of $50 in expected value.
Whoa. So $50 times 37 mistakes. That's
Yeah.
over $2,000 a session. Just vanishing.
Yeah, thousands of dollars a month. Not because of bad luck, but because of these psychological blind spots.
That is wild. But what kind of mistakes are we talking about? The data reveals some pretty crazy patterns, right?
It really does. For example, 67% of players will predictably overfold when they face a triple barrel on a scary board.
Okay, let me translate again. A triple barrel is when someone bets huge on all 3 rounds of the hand. It's just relentless pressure.
Right.
And a scary board means the community cards look really dangerous, like maybe there's a flush out there.
Exactly. When faced with that specific type of pressure, 67% of people just panic and abandon their hand, even when the math says they should stay.
Fear just completely overrides their logic.
Completely. But there's an even crazier stat. 81% of aggressive players will totally shut down if they face a check raise on a paired board.
81%. That's not a tendency, that's basically a guarantee. Why does that happen?
Well, think about the bully psychology. They want to dictate the pace. A paired board where 2 of the same cards are showing, it introduces the threat of a massive monster hand.
Oh, like 3 of a kind.
Right. So the bully bets, expecting everyone to cower, and suddenly someone check raises them, they get punched in the mouth in a very dangerous environment.
And their script just breaks.
Their psychological script totally shatters. They don't know how to play defense, so 81% of the time they just retreat and fold immediately.
Wow. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is profound. It's not just about poker chips anymore.
No, not at all.
It's about finding these deeply ingrained, predictable behavioral patterns that come out when we're under pressure. We really aren't as unpredictable as we like to think.
We are remarkably predictable. And the sources use this great term for people who capitalize on this. They call them donk hunters.
Yeah, I love that. A donk or a donkey is a player who makes terrible emotional decisions but confidently pays you off anyway.
Right.
So having this 4 million hand database, It's basically a cheat sheet to human psychology. You know exactly when the donkey is going to panic.
You're not guessing anymore.
Yeah.
You have empirical evidence about their psychological weaknesses.
And think about how that applies off the poker table. Imagine sitting in a tough business meeting or a salary negotiation.
Oh, exactly.
Instead of wondering if you're making the theoretically right move, imagine already knowing that 81% of people will fold if you apply one specific type of conversational pressure. That's the power of this kind of pool tendency data.
It's a total game changer.
Yeah.
But, and there is a but, you can have all this data and you can do your 20 minutes of daily drills.
Yeah.
But none of it matters if your brain still short circuits when you actually sit down and the stakes are real.
Oh, right. The roller coaster effect. Like one day you feel like a genius and the next day you're losing everything and playing completely on emotion.
Exactly. Because when you lose, stress hormones kick in and you abandon your system. So RangeFlow says you need a rigid framework to remove that emotion.
Right. The pre, in, and post-game routine. Let's break that down, starting with the pre-game.
Yeah, so before you even sit down, the 5 minutes before, you do not just walk in cold. If you walk in cold, your brain gets totally overwhelmed by all the variables.
They say you have to pick exactly one specific focus point for the entire session. Just one.
Exactly. Like, tonight, my only focus is to stop calling large bets on the river when I only beat a bluff.
It acts like a filter. Instead of looking at 100 different things, your brain just looks for that one specific traffic light.
It drastically lowers your cognitive load. Now, the in-game phase is also crucial, especially when you aren't actually involved in a hand.
Yeah, this part is huge because you fold like 80% of the time, right?
Yes. And the worst thing you can do when you fold is pull out your phone and start scrolling social media.
Right. You're still playing the game. You need to be building a mental model of the table.
Who's angry? Who just lost a big pot and is tilting? Who's playing scared?
It's just like being in a Zoom meeting. If you're checking your email while someone else is talking, you're missing all the micro expressions.
You're throwing away free behavioral data.
Totally. Okay, so that brings us to the post-game. The session ends. You don't just close your laptop and go to sleep.
No, you have this 15-minute window where your memories are still completely fresh. That's when you flag 2 or 3 specific hands.
But not the biggest pots you lost, right? Not the bad beat stories.
No, complaining about bad luck is useless. You've flagged the decision points, the spots where you hesitated or felt a spike of anxiety and just guessed.
You isolate that uncertainty. And then what? You feed those into the AI.
Exactly. You put them into RangeFlow's 13 by 13 range matrices, which visually maps out every possible hand you and your opponent could have.
Right, and you let the math tell you exactly where your gut feeling failed you.
You let the AI analyze the exact expected value of every option.
So what does this all mean? When you combine the 20-minute daily drills, the massive data, and this strict mental framework, what's the end result?
The result is that you strip the emotion out of it completely. You treat every session as just a collection of data points.
So you aren't a genius, you just mathematically eliminate your biggest leaks.
Exactly. Over 3 months, you systematically eradicate your most expensive recurring mistakes.
It's just so logical. So to sum this up for you listening, mastery isn't some magical talent. It is a system.
It really is.
Whether it's poker, business, learning a language, you have to move from passive consumption to active, feedback-driven training.
This raises an important question, though, because all of this, tools like RangeFlowAI, they rely on a very specific truth about human nature.
Which is that we are highly predictable creatures who leak value the second we are put under pressure.
Precisely. We leak value in very documented ways.
And that leaves us with a truly provocative thought for today. If a software program can pinpoint human behavioral leaks so perfectly just by analyzing poker hands,
What else could be mapped out?
exactly. Think about your financial habits when you're stressed, or how you negotiate at work, or even how you argue with your spouse.
It makes you wonder.
Are we all just walking around with 47 highly predictable, exploitable leaks in our everyday lives, just waiting for an AI to point them out?
Our daily lives are probably a lot more solved than we want to admit.
Seriously, definitely something to keep in mind the next time you feel stuck. You probably don't need to try harder. You just need to find your leaks.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Before you start your next task today, take 5 minutes, review your last performance, and pick your one single focus point. Game on.